After months of sustained panic and volatility across global energy markets, analysts are now pointing to a significant shift in sentiment as oil trading begins to stabilize and reposition around new expectations. Amid mixed and uncertain signals regarding the progress of any potential peace deal, global oil prices are continuing to fluctuate as traders reassess both diplomatic risk and supply disruption scenarios. Questions are now being raised over whether Donald Trump is gradually stepping back from earlier signals suggesting a final push toward a peace agreement, despite previously indicating renewed diplomatic engagement. At the same time, markets are making big speculative bets in response to warnings that oil supplies could enter a dangerous red zone during July and August, raising fears of a potential shortage-driven price shock. On May 25th, oil prices fell to their lowest levels in 2 weeks as global markets reacted strongly to emerging optimism around a possible Iran peace agreement. Reports indicate that on May 25th, Brent crude slipped below the $99 per barrel mark as traders adjusted positions amid shifting expectations in global energy sentiment. During the same trading session on May 25th, U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude also dropped sharply, falling nearly 5% as volatility swept across oil markets. Financial markets broadly responded to growing optimism surrounding a potential Iran peace deal, with investors temporarily pricing in reduced geopolitical risk. Despite ongoing concerns over Iran's continued pressure around the Strait of Hormuz and its impact on global trade routes, oil prices still registered a notable decline. On May 25th, both Brent and WTI benchmarks touched their lowest recorded level since May 7th, marking a significant short-term correction in the oil market. Oil traders on May 25th were seen carefully balancing expectations of diplomatic progress against persistent fears of supply disruptions and geopolitical escalation. The entire trading session reflected extreme sensitivity to negotiations, with markets closely tracking every signal coming out of diplomatic and energy discussions. The International Energy Agency has warned that the global economy and energy markets could face even greater pain in the coming months as the Iran conflict continues to disrupt critical oil supplies. According to reports, the IEA warned that global oil markets could enter a dangerous red zone by July and August if disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz continue to intensify. The Guardian reported that IEA Executive Director Fatih Birol issued the warning on May 21st while outlining growing concerns over tightening global supply and rising geopolitical instability. Reports also warned that global oil stockpiles are expected to shrink significantly ahead of peak summer demand, increasing fears of a deeper energy and inflation crisis worldwide. According to the International Energy Agency, nearly 14 million barrels of oil per day are currently missing from the global market due to disruptions linked to the widening Iran conflict. The executive director of International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, said at Chatham House, and I quote, "We are open to IEA members to release more strategic oil reserves, as they had previously in March, and said the IEA stood ready to coordinate. As much as 80% of IEA's collective reserves have not been released. I have never seen the dark and long shadow of geopolitics so dominant in the energy sector. I regard the oil shock as more dramatic than 3 previous oil shocks, in 1973, 1979, and the 2022 crisis caused by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. No full recovery in global oil production expected for at least 1 year." Donald Trump said he has instructed U.S. negotiators not to rush into any agreement with Iran as talks continue over a possible deal. On May 24th, Trump stated that the U.S. blockade would remain in place until a final agreement is formally signed between the parties involved. The remarks marked a noticeable shift after Trump had claimed just a day earlier that a deal was already largely negotiated. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by former President Barack Obama, which gave Iran massive amounts of cash and a clear and open path to a nuclear weapon. Our deal is the exact opposite, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers, who are critical about something they know nothing about. Unlike those before me who should have solved this problem many years ago, I don't make bad deals." Unquote. According to Al Jazeera, Trump appeared to be stepping back from the proposed deal amid growing internal political pressure. Meanwhile, US officials told Reuters that Iran had agreed in principle to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Officials also said the current framework could provide negotiators with up to 60 days to finalize a broader agreement. Trump administration officials reportedly claimed that Mujtaba Khamenei had endorsed the broad framework of the proposed deal. However, Tasnim news agency reported that the United States was still resisting key Iranian demands, including the release of frozen Iranian financial assets. Marco Rubio told the New York Times that a nuclear agreement could not be finalized in 72 hours on back of a napkin. Rubio said negotiations involving Iran's uranium enrichment program and nuclear stockpile would likely require much more time. The U.S. Secretary of State added that reopening the Strait of Hormuz remained the immediate priority for Washington. Amid the growing uncertainty, Iranian officials said no final understanding could be reached without approval from Mujtaba Khamenei. Iranian sources told CBS News that Khamenei was operating from a highly restricted and undisclosed location. CBS reported that the isolation had slowed communication between Iranian officials and U.S. negotiators involved in the talks. Reports also stated that even Iranian diplomats were facing difficulty communicating directly with Khamenei during the ongoing negotiations. Amid rising hopes for a ceasefire framework, Trump is now insisting that only he can decide Iran's future, portraying himself as the sole arbiter of any final arrangement. On May 24, he told an American network that signing any final Iran deal is totally up to me, stressing that nothing will be agreed without his personal approval. Trump insisted that if there's news, it's only going to be good news, adding that he doesn't make bad deals, a line meant to reassure both domestic supporters and nervous partners abroad. He said he has instructed his negotiators not to rush into a deal with Tehran, arguing that moving too fast could lock in terms that fall short of U.S. objectives. Trump claimed that time is on our side as talks continue, signaling that he believes Iran is under more pressure from sanctions and the blockade than Washington is from the war's costs. Officials in Washington have made clear the naval blockade on Iran will remain in place until an agreement is reached and signed, keeping economic and military pressure firmly on Tehran during negotiations. Trump said, and I quote, "One of the worst deals ever made by our country was the Iran nuclear deal, put forth and signed into existence by Barack Hussein Obama and the rank amateurs of the Obama administration. It was a direct path to Iran developing a nuclear weapon. Not so with the transaction currently being negotiated with Iran by the Trump administration. The exact opposite, in fact. The negotiations are proceeding in an orderly and constructive manner, and I have informed my representatives not to rush into a deal, and that time is on our side. The blockade will remain in full force and effect until an agreement is reached, certified, and signed. Both sides must take their time and get it right. There can be no mistakes. Our relationship with Iran is becoming a much more professional and productive one. They must understand, however, that they cannot develop or procure a nuclear weapon or bomb." Unquote. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has said Trump personally assured him that Iran's nuclear threat will be eliminated, not just managed or delayed. Netanyahu claims their discussions covered security in the Strait of Hormuz, ceasefire terms on current battlefields and, crucially, the shape of final-stage nuclear negotiations. The Israeli premier insists any final deal must dismantle Iran's enrichment facilities, arguing that merely limiting or monitoring them is not enough to guarantee long-term security. He has also demanded that enriched uranium be physically removed from Iranian territory, saying that as long as the material stays inside Iran, the risk of a breakout remains. However, reports say Iran currently refuses to discuss detailed nuclear issues in the present round of Memorandum of Understanding talks, keeping that file off the table for now. Tehran reportedly wants nuclear questions postponed until later, final agreement negotiations, hoping to secure security guarantees and sanctions relief language before touching its most sensitive program. Iranian state media reported on May 24 that Tehran has not accepted any specific nuclear action as part of the current talks with Washington, pushing back on speculation that a detailed deal is already in place. This clarification followed US officials telling the New York Times that Iran may be prepared in principle to give up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium as part of a broader understanding. According to those reports, Iran has so far offered only a general commitment rather than precise, binding terms on what would happen to its enriched uranium. The question of how, where, and under what verification Iran would relinquish or neutralize that material would be worked out later, the New York Times report said. All this comes despite earlier reporting that Supreme Leader Mujtaba Khamenei opposed sending enriched uranium abroad, a key sticking point in past negotiations. IRGC-linked outlet Tasnim News has reported that peace talks could begin with a limited memorandum of understanding between Iran and the US rather than a full, formal agreement. The reported draft memorandum would temporarily waive some US sanctions on Iranian oil exports, offering Tehran economic breathing space. That waiver would allow Iran to sell oil without the current sanctions-related limits on volume and buyers, at least for a defined period. The same draft reportedly calls for a halt to fighting across all fronts in the Middle East, linking nuclear and regional de-escalation. Tasnim News also says the proposal explicitly includes Lebanon in this wider ceasefire framework, which would directly affect the Hezbollah-Israel front. Additionally, the draft envisions that steps related to the Strait of Hormuz and maritime security there would be implemented within 30 days of the understanding taking effect. The framework reportedly sets a 60-day timeline to begin and advance more formal nuclear negotiations, suggesting this MOU would function as a temporary off-ramp rather than a full revival of the old deal.